I spend way too much time thinking about money and why people keep getting trapped by financial decisions that sound responsible, practical, and adult, even when those decisions are quietly draining them. And leasing a car is one of the cleanest examples. Because here's the truth, most of the time, leasing is not a wealth-building move. It's a comfort move. It's a lifestyle move. It's a I want a nicer car with a lower monthly payment move. And those are not the same thing. Now that does not mean leasing is always bad, but it does mean most people defending it are not actually talking about math. They're talking about how it feels. They like the lower payment, they like the newer car, they like that it stays under warranty, they like that it looks manageable, and I get it. A lease can make a more expensive car feel weirdly affordable. That's why it works so well. That's why dealerships love it. It shrinks the monthly pain and hides the total cost. So today, I want to separate the fantasy from the reality, because there actually are times when leasing a car makes sense, just not nearly as often as people think. The first time leasing can make sense is when your income is high, your cash flow is strong, and you are intentionally paying for convenience. That's it. Convenience. Not wealth, not value, not ownership. Convenience. If you make excellent money, you save aggressively, you invest consistently, you have no consumer debt stress, and you simply want predictable transportation with fewer maintenance surprises, then sure, leasing can be a reasonable choice. Because at that point, you are not pretending it is a smart asset play. You know it is an expense. You know you are paying for simplicity. You know you are renting the experience of driving a newer car. That's very different from someone making normal money and trying to lease their way into looking more financially stable than they are. One is a conscious luxury expense, the other is a disguised struggle payment. And those are not the same thing. If you're maxing retirement accounts, holding cash reserves, sleeping well at night, and you want the convenience of switching into a new car every few years without caring about long-term ownership, fine. You're buying ease. But most people are not in that category. Most people are trying to lower the monthly payment enough to fit a car into a budget that is already too tight. And when that happens, the lease is not solving the problem. It is decorating it. The second time leasing can make sense is when you use the vehicle for business in a way that creates a real financial advantage. Not fake business, not I answer emails from the car, not I might start something soon. Real business use. If the vehicle plays a legitimate role in your work and your accountant has shown you that the structure actually helps your broader financial picture, then okay, that is at least a real argument, because then the decision is part of a bigger system. It is not just you falling in love with a monthly payment. And this is where people get sloppy. They hear one self-employed person talk about leasing and suddenly act like it is automatically smart for anyone with a side hustle and an LLC. No. A tax angle is not magic. A deduction does not make something free. Spending money inefficiently is still spending money inefficiently. So if you're leasing for business reasons, the reason needs to be real, documented, and worth it, not just emotionally satisfying. The third time leasing can make sense is when you know with complete honesty that you are the kind of person who will always want a newer car, and you are choosing the least chaotic version of that habit. Now this one is uncomfortable because it requires self-awareness. A lot of personal finance advice assumes everyone is trying to optimize every dollar. They're not. Some people care a lot about having a newer car. They always will. They like the features, they like the safety tech, they like the experience, they like knowing the car is unlikely to surprise them. And again, that is fine. But if that is you, at least tell the truth about it. Do not pretend you are leasing because it is the best financial move. Say what it is. I care about driving a newer car, and I accept that it costs me more. That level of honesty is rare, but it matters. Because once you tell the truth, you can at least build the rest of your life around reality. What gets people in trouble is pretending they are making a disciplined decision when really they are funding a preference. And preferences get expensive when you disguise them as needs. The fourth time leasing can make sense is when you drive very little. This is one of the few situations where the structure of a lease can line up well with real life. If you barely put miles on a car, keep it in excellent shape, and your lifestyle is highly predictable, then the mileage limits and condition rules may not hit you very hard. That matters, because one of the fastest ways a lease becomes a bad deal is when your actual life does not fit the agreement. You commute farther than expected, your routine changes, you move, you start driving more, kids happen, work changes, life expands, and suddenly that cheap lease starts charging you for being a normal person. That's the problem with lease math. It looks neat on paper and messy in real life. And real life is where money decisions either hold up or fall apart. The fifth time leasing can make sense is when you are absolutely certain you do not want to deal with long-term ownership risk. Some people hate uncertainty more than they hate cost. They do not want surprise repairs. They do not want to think about resale value. They do not want to manage an aging vehicle. They want predictable payments, predictable timelines, and a built-in exit. That is not irrational, but it is expensive, and that is the part that has to stay attached to the conversation. A lot of people are not bad at math. They are paying to reduce stress. That's what's really going on. They are paying extra to avoid repair anxiety. They are paying extra to avoid driving an older car. They are paying extra to avoid the mental friction of ownership. Again, that can be fine. But if you are paying for stress reduction, call it that. Because once you frame it honestly, you stop turning every emotional purchase into a fake financial strategy. And that changes everything. Now here's where we need to get brutally clear. Just because leasing can make sense does not mean it usually does. For the average person, leasing is often a polished way of staying in a permanent car payment. That's the lifestyle trap. You never really own the thing. You just keep rotating through obligations. A few years pass, the term ends, and now you are back at the dealership doing the same dance again. New payment, new paperwork, new promises, same dependency. And because the monthly number looks manageable, people do not feel the full weight of what they are doing. That's why leasing is so seductive. It lets people live one category above what they would normally buy. It makes the car feel accessible. It turns "I can't afford this" into "I can probably swing that payment." That sounds normal until you actually run the numbers. Because the goal is not just to survive the payment. The goal is to create a life with margin. A life where your paycheck is not already spoken for. A life where your car is not eating your flexibility. A life where one broken appliance or medical bill does not shove you onto a credit card. And this is where cars hurt people more than they realize. Not because cars are bad, because car payments reduce your ability to recover. They shrink margin, they steal cash flow, they lock in stress. And when you stack that on top of rent, insurance, groceries, debt, subscriptions, and normal life, suddenly the reasonable car decision becomes the thing that keeps you financially tense all year. That is why this matters. The real question is not, can leasing ever make sense? Yes, sometimes it can. The real question is, what kind of life is this decision creating? Is it giving you peace? Or is it giving you a polished version of being stretched? Is it a convenience expense you can truly afford? Or is it a status habit with better branding? Is it part of a strong financial life? Or is it compensating for one? Because that distinction changes everything. If you are wealthy, disciplined, low stress, and fully aware that you are paying for convenience, leasing can be fine. If you use the vehicle in a legitimate business context and the numbers truly support it, leasing can be fine. If you drive very little, want predictability, and accept the trade-off clearly, leasing can be fine. But if you are leasing because buying feels too expensive, if you are leasing because you want more car than your budget really supports, if you are leasing because the lower monthly payment makes an unaffordable lifestyle feel temporarily possible, that is not a smart move. That is a financial anesthetic. And financial anesthetics are dangerous because they do not fix the problem. They just make it easier to live with, for a while, until the rest of your budget starts gasping for air. Here's what nobody wants to say out loud. A lot of people do not need a better car decision. They need a more honest life decision. They need to stop building budgets around appearances. They need to stop treating monthly payments. They need to stop building budgets around appearances. They need to stop treating monthly payments like proof of affordability. They need to stop confusing normal with safe, because normal is expensive now. Normal is financed. Normal is stressed. Normal is making decent money and still feeling trapped. You do not need to copy that. The goal is not to look stable. The goal is to be stable. And those are two very different things. So yes, there are a few times leasing a car actually makes sense. But the list is short. Much shorter than dealerships want you to believe, much shorter than your friends want to admit, and much shorter than most people's egos can handle. Because in the end, the best car decision is usually the one that gives you the most freedom, the most margin, and the least long-term pressure, not the one that looks the cleanest on a showroom floor. That's the shift. Stop asking what lets you drive the nicest car for the lowest monthly payment. Start asking what lets you keep the most control over your life. That question will save you a lot more money, and a lot more stress, and probably a lot more years of working just to maintain things you never fully owned in the first place.